Hello, and welcome back to the Tea and Soju Cdrama Podcast, your safe spot for Cdrama chatter. I'm your host, Liliana, and it's time to sit back, grab your tea, and let's chat Asian dramas. In today's episode, we are going to be reviewing Flourished Peony. And just some housekeeping before we get into the episode. If you like the podcast, please like, share, and subscribe on the platform you listen on. That really helps the podcast reach other listeners. For more content, check out Patreon, where you can find behind the scenes, first impressions, Mooney reviews, and more. Finally, if you would like to chat to me or find a community, check out Discord, Instagram, and other socials. The link is in the episode notes. So, we have a returning guest today, and she's going to be reviewing this drama with me. So, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Corinne, and I am one of the co-hosts of the pop culture podcast Sex.Love.Lit Literature, where we take we call it a semi-academic look at how sex, love, romance, desire, that sort of thing work in various pieces of pop culture.
So, yes, and you've already reviewed. I think I said this last time. You guys, I can't remember. We did the Romance of Tiger and Rose together, the three of us.
We
We
did,
reviewed
yeah.
that on Tea and Soju. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, so if you want to check that out, go and listen back. And I will leave the link for the podcast in the episode notes. So, this is a question I like to sort of just ask guests to ease us into the episode. What are you currently watching?
So I recently finished the historical C-drama Perfect Match, which was a lot of fun.
Mm.
And I am currently watching The First Frost, which I am so obsessed with.
I think you and everybody else. I think
Yeah.
it's the norm right now. I think
I'm not
everybody
unique in
is
that.
no. I think we're all in our first frost era. I'm very, very excited about this drama. I'm going to be reviewing it, and we were saying because I'm going to have some guests over to review First Frost, and
hmm
I put a poll out, and I asked listeners, what would you prefer? A slightly shorter episode, but you have it all in one go, and it might be like a 2.5 hour review, or do you want a longer episode, but I will break it up in two. So you'll have part one and part two. Most people are like, just give us all the chatter you want in two parts. That's fine. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to end up having like two parts because that's how much there's so much to talk about in this drama. Like all the little details, all the little things. I'm very, very excited about that one. What did you think about Perfect Match? Because I have watched that one. I finished it up.
hmm So I really liked it. I went
Hmm.
into it after it had finished airing, so I kind of knew it was basically like a bunch of mini dramas stacked together with
Hmm.
different
Hmm.
sisters. I think if I had gone in expecting a more continuous narrative, I might have been
Hmm.
disappointed. But since I
Hmm.
knew what I was getting, I thought the various shenanigans were really fun. I really liked most of the romances. Some of them hit for me better than the others, but for what it was, I thought it was very good at doing what it did.
Mm. I agree. So for me, my biggest problem with it was I loved the first couple and I loved like
hmm
the very last couple. I thought they were a lot of fun. And
hmm
even like one of the other couples I also enjoyed. It was like the second couple that really did not
That
work for
one,
me.
yeah, that one did not hit. Like when I started it, I knew I wanted to get to the Howdy and her judge husband. I
Hmm.
knew I
Hmm.
wanted to get to
Hmm.
that one because I saw that people loved it, and I was like, okay, gotta
That
get
was
through. But yeah,
fun. Yeah.
pushing through the oldest sister's romance was like, girl, this is
It
so
was,
boring.
and I think it was a problem with the male lead that,
Yep.
there was a lack of chemistry for me between those two actors. Funnily enough, they've been paired up again for another drama, which is
Why? Maybe
interesting.
okay. Sure, why not? Maybe they'll
Interesting.
improve with time.
Well, the thing is, sometimes you need a good director to kind of like
Yeah.
really bring the best out of you. So maybe with a different director and the focus solely on them. Because I think that was a bit of the problem as well. I think like the romances were a little unbalanced in terms of
hmm
how many episodes per couple they kind of spent. So maybe because the first couple I felt was very well developed because we had a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time spent with
Mm-hmm.
them. Whereas some of the others, it felt, not quite. Although I will say for the second couple, I was like, this is too many episodes. Cut them down.
Yeah,
I
let's
don't
move
need this.
on.
Yeah,
Let's
move
keep
on.
going.
We're done. We're done. Move on. Move on. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen with that one. And I think I went in. Have you watched the drama New Life Begins?
I have, yeah, I actually really liked it.
I loved New
Okay,
Life
good.
Begins. It's what like it's such a good I always say that is a really friendly, like beginner friendly kind of
Hmm.
historical because it's focused on the women a lot, it's the women's story, but the romances are
Hmm.
done fairly well as well. And I loved it. And I thought it was gonna be something similar to that a little bit, but with
Mm.
sisters instead. And I don't think the romances hit quite nearly as good. And I think a lot of people were actually, this would be interesting because a lot of people were comparing Perfect Match to have a lot of like, what's the word? Jane Austen vibes. A lot of people
Hmm.
said that's what it felt like. Even with like a lot of the pairings, but yeah, I don't know. That one is just it was good, but it could have been so much better. I think that was my consensus for that one.
Yeah, I think that tracks.
Mm.
I think I had like tempered expectations, so I wasn't
Mm.
expecting it to knock my socks off, and I wanted something a little bit more like easygoing, which it mostly was. I mean, it
Mm.
definitely had like things that were difficult, particularly using the historical genre aspects. But it was like, I don't know, it was mostly goofy shenanigans, and that was fine.
Yeah.
That was what I
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah. It works. It worked for your mood at the time.
Hmm.
Right. So let's get into this review. So I am just going to read off the MDL synopsis, and it reads: Set in the Tang Dynasty, the story follows He Wei Fang, a merchant's daughter skilled in cultivating rare peonies. With the help of Jiang Chang Yang, an official in Chang'an, she leaves a marriage of convenience and starts a business cultivating peonies. Together, they establish a flower shop empowering women with difficult pasts and creating a thriving brand. As He Wei Fang witnesses the struggles of the poor, she transforms the industry to benefit the people, all while aiding Jiang Chang Yang in his mission to serve the country. Their bond deepens into a secret love. After overcoming a rebellion together, they retreat to live in harmony with nature. We haven't gotten to that part yet because I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's the second half of the drama that we
Yeah.
haven't had yet. But we will see. We will see. I will say that's quite a good description. However, I would add in that this is way more focused on business than it is on
Mhm.
romance.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. I find it interesting because a lot of people, I don't know, have you watched Love Like the Galaxy?
Yes, I love that. Actually, I just did a review of that for Afternoon of Delight with Sarah from
You
K-Drama This.
did. And I knew this. Do you know why I knew this? Because I was with Sarah yesterday. I met up with her for Hot Pot. And she said,
Excellent.
and we were talking about, and I said, oh, yeah, I'm going to record a Korean tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, today. And she said, oh, you'll have to, you'll have to let her know that we talked because we just recorded this, this episode. So yeah, I did know that. I'm very excited to listen to that. I'm going to be rewatching this year. So I'm very excited to do that. We're going to have fun because it's going to be a drama trio episode as well.
Oh,
Um,
great. I found that it held up on a rewatch.
I'm
So,
glad. I think it will because, like, I love Wule. I love Zhao Lushi. Like, these are two actors that are very high up for me. Like, Zhao Lushi is top three for me for absolutely sure, and Wule is probably up there as well, just because I think they're very versatile actors.
mhm,
So I'm very excited to rewatch it and see like what I pick up on a second watch.
mhm,
Especially now that I prefer and enjoy historicals way more than I did because I watched it live, like I watched it on air the first
mhm.
time around. So I'm very excited. But yeah, but what I was gonna say is it's quite interesting because Love Like the Galaxy, a lot of people say it's quite slow on the romance front. And I say to them, you haven't met slow until you watched Flourished Peony, because by episode 30, we barely get any glances. That's what we
Oh
get.
yeah, like I don't even know if we're there yet by the end of part one.
The thing is, we've only got 24 episodes in part two. So I'm like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So I think I will say right off the bat, listeners, if you're going into this expecting an epic romance, don't, because you're not going to get that. I don't think that's the focus. I feel like they're friends above anything else. And
Hmm.
then that's what develops afterwards. But yeah, I think a lot of people were expecting way more romance from this than what they got.
Hmm.
Now we haven't watched part two, so it's always a little hard to like judge something that is unfinished like this, because this does feel like,
Hmm.
you know, it isn't finished as it is. Because originally this was going to have like close to 70 episodes. When they
Hmm.
first kind of did this drama, but they cut a lot because it's now down to, well, 56. So 12 episodes ish,
Yeah,
14.
that's a
So
lot of storyline that they
I don't know.
had to cut.
In a historical, that's a lot of storyline. That's a lot of storyline. I mean, in a modern, you can cut that much and it still probably
Hmm.
works just fine. Now, if you do that in a historical, you miss out a lot. So I'm just hoping, as of yet, we haven't, I don't think part one, you've felt that it's been cut in
Mm-mm.
any sense. But I think part two is where it's really gonna show, I reckon, because I reckon
Hmm.
that's the part they, cut more out. So this is adapted from a web novel by Yi Chin Chong. As most Chinese dramas, most of them are adapted from web novels. This is 32 episodes. It aired from January 7th, 2025 to January 22nd, 2025. It is a Hunan TV production. So Hunan is a channel that is like a TV channel, and they own Mango TV. So that's where it was airing. Luckily, thank God, Vicky picked this up
Yeah.
because Mango TV subs are legendary for being atrocious. So luckily, Vicky picked it up. And also, I will say, I bash about Vicky a lot of the time, but I do appreciate, especially when we're watching a historical, Vicky does
Mm.
do the extra work of putting in subtle things that international viewers would not pick up on. So
Hmm.
whenever a Chinese platform is airing a drama, yes, they'll do English subtitles, but a lot of the time they just assume people would know certain things, whereas Vicky doesn't. Vicky is an international platform, so I think it helps when they put in like their little additions to explain certain things. And I think it's even more helpful when it comes to historical dramas. So that's where it aired. This filmed from January 2nd, 2024 to July 26th, 2024. That is a long shoot for
Mm.
even for historical. That's like 6 months,
Hmm.
6 months, 7 months
Yeah.
almost for a historical. And the thing is, they built a bunch of sets from scratch for this. A lot of places, they will just record in oh my goodness, in Hangdian World Studios, whereas this one, I believe they were recorded in a different place, in a couple of different places, and they built new sets for it. So I quite liked that aspect. What did you think of like the sets and everything and design? Because we can talk about that now
Hmm.
because it's not really a spoiler.
Yeah. I really liked it. I thought it was like a very beautiful drama in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. I think especially, well, because flowers are very important to it. I think they did a really good job with filming like the various peonies and like just the setting felt very distinct in a way a lot of other
Mhm.
C dramas sometimes feel like very similar to other ones because they're often reusing the same sets in different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was really pretty. I don't love the costuming and like the makeup and hairstyles for this particular time period,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
this is not my favorite, but
No.
given what it was, I think they did like it had a very distinct sort of style to it.
Mm-hmm. They did keep this really, really close to what Tang Dynasty is and to what
Hmm.
they used to dress. So this is fairly historically accurate to the Tang Dynasty. At least that's what I have heard from people.
Hmm.
And, what looking it up and, doing a little bit of research, that's kind of like what I came up with is that they've kept this fairly close to Tang
Hmm.
Dynasty. So what you see, obviously, what they have access through paintings and descriptions and things like that. The makeup was done like that, and their clothes were very much like that. So I appreciate when they say it's a Tang dynasty and they do a Tang
Hmm.
dynasty, because sometimes they'll be like, oh, it's Tang dynasty, but they take liberties and kind of like adapt it a little bit. So I do appreciate that they kept it fairly close to historical records as they could, and as they can, in modern day history. So
Hmm.
there is, obviously, we've already mentioned it, there is going to be a second part for this, which I will have to bring you back. We'll have to do like a review for the second part and
Yeah,
close
I
out the thing.
absolutely.
I mean, it's just a given. It has to happen. So the second part is going to be called In the Name of Blossom, which we were giggling at before we started recording because we were mentioning, does it have to be another blossom?
Well, and like, because Flourished Peony actually has to do with the plot, which like
Yeah,
never
yeah, yeah.
happens with English C-drama titles. So for them to
Mm-hmm.
like be like, here, a title that actually is related, and then to be like, but now back to Blossom. It's like,
Yes,
really? Do we
exactly.
gotta?
Because the thing is, Flourished Peony makes so much sense. It's her story. It's
Hmm.
her story of like flourishing. Like, it is
Yeah.
a beautiful title for what the drama is. Now, what I've heard is they want to distance this as much as they can from the first part in terms of details. So, like, different title, different reorganizing of cast, as in they'll put other cast further up and whatnot. The reason they're trying to do that is they're trying to put it past censorship earlier so that they can air it faster. Now, Mango TV is kind of like saying, because typically, as it stands right now, the rules state that if it's a part two, it has like you have to wait a year
Hmm.
for it. Now, Lost You Forever was not quite a year. It was
Hmm.
close to a year, but they aired it before the year was up. So I am going to be interested to see if we're going to see the rest of this one. This is finished. Like they've cut it, they're whatnot. The only thing they're waiting for, it hasn't passed review yet. It hasn't passed censorship
Mm.
yet. So that's what they're waiting for. And that's like what I'm a little bit concerned about.
That
Let's
always
put
makes
it
me
that
so
way.
anxious.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the worst part of being a Chinese drama watcher and fan is until they get the green light to air. And the thing is, with something like this where the cast is fairly extensive in a way, you
Hmm.
always worry that somebody is gonna pop
Hmm.
out of nowhere with a,
Yeah.
with a scandal of sorts. So I'm hoping that's not going to be the case. This just happened actually. I really wanted to watch I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's called Legend of the Female General. I'm
Oh, I was looking
very
forward to that. Did something happen?
so yeah. So there was
Oh
a minor
no.
scandal. There was a scandal with
Ugh.
one of the actors. And what they're going to do is they're going to CGI his face away
Sure, why
into
not?
somebody else's face. But you know what? I would rather they do that than they shelf the drama altogether.
Yeah,
Like,
that's very true.
at least that way we get to watch it and we get to experience it. And the cast and crew's hard work doesn't go to waste. I mean, they
Hmm.
still get paid, but you know, it doesn't go to waste. Like, we get to enjoy it. So I think that's what's going to happen with that one. And I'm really annoyed because that one was slated for like the first quarter of 2025. And I don't think we're going to get it.
Oh
Because
yeah.
they now have to rework it. So it's infuriating. But I'm hoping everybody pays their taxes and everybody keeps their nose above water
Yep.
for this,
Yep.
so we can watch the second part. And as I was saying, I think, yeah, the second part is going to be 24 episodes, but we won't know that for sure until it passes censorship,
Hmm.
because then they'll get like an airing license and then it'll say how many episodes for sure
Hmm.
have passed. So that is the number floating, is that it's going to be 24. That's what MDL says, but who knows? Who
Yeah,
knows?
well, we'll see.
We'll see. But I think that's why they wanted to change the title so much, is because they couldn't just go with Flourished Peony too, because that would be, So I think they're trying this thing where they kind of like try to distance themselves as much as possible. If it works, that'll be quite good, because it means that other
Hmm.
companies will start like
Oh yeah, they'll do
trying.
the same thing.
They'll do the same until censorship catches on to them and being
Yeah.
like, no, no. Because this is exactly what happened when they first changed the rules. Because originally it was like 40 episodes or two parts, and they would just like air part one, finish it like
Hmm.
on a Friday, and then Saturday they would start airing part two. And so many of them did that like censorship caught on, and they were like, no, no, that's not what's going to happen anymore. So we'll see what they can do. But so just if you are going to watch this, go in knowing that there is going to be a part two, and the drama does feel unfinished. There's not like a
Hmm.
huge cliffhanger, I would say.
Yeah, well, I would say it feels like there's more story, but I also didn't feel unsatisfied at the end.
Exactly. Because I think we'll get into it in spoilers, but I think the particular like arc of the show that we were watching in part one is kind of like closed in a
Uh-huh.
sense. And I think we're going to move on to a different arc. And I think if they've done that in that way, they've done it very well. Because, like, that's if you want to do different parts, this is the way to do it. Like, close out an arc and
Hmm.
then give us the next arc later. So I think that works out really well. So, director for this is Ding Zi Guang, and he has done all dramas that I absolutely love. So he's done Meet Yourself, he's done Go Ahead, he has done Find Yourself, and he has done Youth. Have you watched any of these?
I have seen Meet Yourself, and Go Ahead is on my list of dramas I want to watch when I have maybe some tears to spare.
Yeah, yeah. I did cry at that one a little bit. It's beautifully told. It's beautifully told. It's one of my all-time favorites, Go Ahead.
Hmm.
And if you like Meet Yourself, you'll enjoy Go Ahead as well, for the most part, because they're done by the same director and the same screenwriters. So it's
Hmm.
like it's a little trio that does absolute magic together. So I'm
Hmm.
very excited. So yeah, I really like both of those. So this director has obviously worked with Li Xian, because Li Xian was the male lead for Meet Yourself.
Hmm.
And then the screenwriter for this is Zhang Yuan Ang, and she has done quite a few things. The First Shot, and she has done Immortal Samsara, so she's worked with Yang Zi. She has done Ultimate Note, The Golden Eyes, Ashes of Love, again Yang Zi. So this screenwriter has worked with her a couple of times, and Mystic Nine, which I believe Mystic Nine is a Li Xian drama. If I'm not mistaken, it might be. So I think this screenwriter has actually worked with both of them. Now, female lead is Yang Zi. Now, this woman she's a child actress. She's been acting
Hmm.
since 2001. So she has been acting for a very, very long time. And if I were to go through her filmography right now, I would be here all day because it is extensive. She's been in a lot of things. So I think she's most known, although a lot of people will know her for Lost You Forever season one and
Hmm.
season two. And then she was also in 2022 in Immortal Samsara. She was in Psychologist in 2021. Go Go Squid is another role that, is very well known for her. And it's also where she worked with Li Xian. So this is something where they've actually worked together before. It's a reunion of sorts. And that's why so many people were so excited for this drama, is
Hmm.
because it's a reunion of the Go-Go Squid couple. And she was also in Ashes of Love. So that's like, I think, her main bigger roles. And then for the male lead, we have Xian. And Xian has been in Will Love in Spring, Meet Yourself, Sword Dynasty, Medical Examiner Dr. Chin from 2016. So he's also been in a lot of things. We also have some supporting cast. We have Wade Zining and we have Zhang Yachin. So that's kind of like, your main roles. We also have Tu Song Yan, who plays King of Ning, who, for me, I find it incredibly hard to see as a villain because he's so I will explain. He's one of the dads from Go Ahead, and he is like the best screen dad,
Ah.
the nicest person. And that role is so imprinted in my brain. Like he's very versatile. He's done like horrible characters, he's done very nice characters, but the one my brain goes to straight away is the Go Ahead character. So
Hmm.
it's always an adjustment to
Yeah.
see him as a bad person because I just assume, oh, it's Noodle Dad, he's nice. But not all the time, not all the time. So let's just get into some general non-spoiler thoughts. What did you think about this drama overall?
So I really liked it. It was definitely one. So I watched this one as it aired, and it was definitely one where I like watched the episodes the day they aired, was very into it, very much wanted to know what happened next. I think it also maybe had some, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but like a problem a little bit with the stakes sometimes, where some plot lines felt like they had huge stakes, and then some of them felt like they were almost from like the rom-com genre instead of like a
Mm-hmm.
historical where people really are like dealing with matters of life and death. So that sort of
Mm-hmm.
back and forth I found a little bit jarring sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, I I really liked both parts of both like halves of that equation. They just didn't always feel like they fit together.
Mm-hmm. I did start watching this like live as it was airing, but I think a lot of people on the pod, like listeners, will know January was a horrendous month for me in terms of like family problems.
I'm
So
sorry.
yeah, it was not an easy month to start the year with. I had to like rush back home. So I just had no time
Hmm.
whatsoever. So although I did start watching it, on air, I then like lost the thread of it and like put it on
Hmm.
hold. And then I went back and binged it and finished it this morning. So because I was saying, I was talking to somebody and I said, we just like living on the edge and, finishing it the day of recording. It never happens. I'm usually a little bit more prepared than that. But I was like, it'll be fine. I know I have like 2 episodes left. I can absolutely fit those in the morning. That's
Hmm.
not a problem. Um, so this is fairly fresh. Like this is as fresh as it can get in my mind right now. And I overall really, really enjoyed it. I like that this is a female centric story.
Yes.
Yes, we have like a small, there's a romance. Well, is there? Is there a romance?
There is a possible romance.
There's a possible romance, right? But I like that they really dig into what it is like to be a female in that
Hmm.
time and place in history, how difficult it is. And, I quite like that for the most part, apart from one character who, is the princess, Lu Yuzhen. Apart from her
Hmm.
character, if you really look at the other core female characters, they're strong, kind of like independent, and they're
Hmm.
really supportive of each other as
Hmm.
women, right? Um, And I really enjoy that. I always enjoy a good female centric drama.
Hmm.
And although, like I said, this does have the backstory of for our male lead, and even like for Wei Ziming's character, so for Liu Chang, like his backstory is also going to be very important in the I think that it's going to become I think he's going to become a way bigger player in the second
Oh
half
yeah.
than he
Well, he
was.
was so interesting even in the first half to like I'll save my spoilery thoughts for in a bit, but
Yes,
like
yes, because
yeah.
he's a very interesting character, and for me, he it was very interesting to see Wade Ziming play this type of character because he often
Hmm.
does, cold characters, yes, but not straight out horrible characters. But is
Yeah.
he a horrible I think he has like a very, I don't know, ambiguous side
Hmm.
to his character, but we will definitely get more. We'll go through like all the characters when we get into the spoiler section. But overall, I really liked it. I liked that this is ultimately an underdog story because she
Yeah.
is very much an underdog. And who doesn't like to support a female underdog? I mean, so I like seeing her progression, not only just as, she grows her business and she finds a foothold in the capital, but also as a woman in that day and era, and how she doesn't necessarily find love that appealing. She doesn't find
Hmm.
marriage that appealing in the slightest. She's just like, I want to do my business. That's what I'm focused on. Like I don't care if I'm getting married or not. So
Hmm.
I really appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that we get to see the people that she hires for her business and like their
Hmm.
backstories. I really liked that aspect as well. So to say the least, that this is like very much Yang's drama. Like
Hmm.
it's her drama. Although yes, we love to see Li Xian in this, and I still think his character is going to be way more prevalent in the second half again. I think that's the arc that they're going to pick up. It's going to be like his side of the story in the second half.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like so far it's been hers, and I'm not mad about it. Like, I really enjoy it. I think if you
Hmm.
like historicals, more serious historicals where the politics are held outside of the palace, where you have like common people, I would say,
Hmm.
common people politics, then this is the type of drama you would enjoy. Um, so yeah, I like it so far. So let's rate it, and then we can move into spoilers because that's where all the good conversations are held,
Uh-huh.
I would say. So for ratings, we have one teacup. It was something I watched. It wasn't good, but something made me finish. And that is a 1 to a 5.5 on MDL. Two teacups, the okay ones. Dramas I don't really recommend, but they were an okay background watch. And that's a 6 to a 7 on MDL. Three teacups, the enjoyable ones. Good dramas. They were enjoyable. And I would recommend to people who enjoy this genre, and that's a 7.5 to an 8 on MDL. Four teacups, the loved ones. These are dramas that I really loved. There might be a couple of problems with it, but overall, a really enjoyable drama that I would recommend to a wider audience. And that's an 8.5 to a 9.5 on MDL. And then we have five teacups, the rose glass no faults dramas. These ratings are reserved for those dramas that you love so much that you are willing to ignore any problems they may have. And that's the elusive tens on
Yeah.
MDL. Now, for me, I would hold this between, I don't know, see, it's either going to be like a 3.5, but like climb more like a four
Hmm.
teacup, I would say, for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of I think in that like 3.5 to 4 teacup range. I
Mm.
think in part because it doesn't they couldn't quite land everything because it is a part one, which I think is part of maybe my hesitation to give it like a solid 4 teacups.
Yeah. I think I'm more stuck on like a 3.5. And this is my
Hmm.
problem, right? Because I always say I don't judge dramas until they're finished, until the whole
Hmm.
product is presented to me. However, with this one, I didn't mind as much because
Yeah.
that arc is completed in the first half
Yeah.
in sorts. So it kind of it feels unfinished, but it also doesn't. So I
Well,
don't
it's
mind it
because
as much.
I think it's because the romance arc is part of what's unfinished. And if like
Exactly.
they're selling it as a romance,
But
like
it's not,
yeah.
I'm not seeing a romance yet.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. I think, yeah, for me, it's kind of like 3 point. I think it's like in the middle. 3.5 would be
Mhm.
like a fair. And I reckon this very much could end up as a 40 cup, like overall.
Oh yeah,
Um,
if they land the second half, this very easily could become one that I recommend to people who like
mm,
especially who like historicals.
but we just need to wait for that second part. Goodness, I hope they release it to us sooner rather than later. So that is like all the general thoughts and everything out of the way. So if you don't want spoilers for this drama, this is your spoiler warning. We are going to be talking about very specific things now, spoiling everything and anything to do with part one of this drama. So if you don't like spoilers, then maybe go finish part one and then come and give us a listen. If you don't mind spoilers, then go ahead. So let's start. I think a good place to start this spoiler section has to be our main female lead because her character is like, I feel the first half is very much her story. It's like
Mhm.
her going and finding, wanting. Because ultimately, when I say the first arc feels completed, what I mean by that is her aim was to claim back that
Mhm.
garden that belonged to her mother. And she did.
Mhm.
So by the end, she is standing tall in her mother's garden, raising the flowers that she wants. So I feel like that's why that arc to me, like her arc, feels
Mhm.
completed, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
her business aims are like a
Hmm.
success.
Yeah. What did you think of her as a character? Did you think her growth was done well? If she grew, what did you think?
So I really liked her. She was a character who I really enjoyed spending time with, I should say. She was incredibly resilient. I think she was also an interesting character to follow. So one of the things that I felt like this drama was really about and trying to point out was the way that gender-based oppression and sexism can be very, very systemic.
Hmm.
And I think her character was set up really, really well to point out all the ways that, like, it's not just that, like, her husband was a terrible person or that her in-laws were. It was that the legal system was against her, the social system was against her class was against her. Like, all of these different systems were entangling to make even, like, basic things, like get a job after she leaves her husband, nearly impossible. So,
Hmm.
like, the combination of her character growth in dealing with those things, plus just the whole setup, and also Young's performance, really, really hit for me. I think a really effective way.
I would absolutely agree. I think they don't shy away, like we were talking about earlier, from the fact that it was incredibly difficult to be a woman in
Mm-hmm.
that day and age, unless you were in a high position. So
Mm-hmm.
you see this very well contrasted with between her and the I'm just gonna call her the princess, but the
Yeah.
second female leads her character, it's very well contrasted here, because she can easily get what she wants except the man.
Well, so I found that
'Cause-
super interesting in a sense
Mhm,
because like the county princess, like she could get what she wanted more easily than Mudan, but
mhm,
she also like in her first marriage, like she makes some sort of side comments that are like, oh, like I can like I saw like what would have happened to me if my father wasn't who he was. So like
mhm.
even with her very high social position and like even for her later, like when she loses the ability to have children, let's say, what even
Yeah.
when I mean totally her own fault. She's a terrible person. But like but even then, she still like all the privilege she has is an extension of what her father gives her.
Exactly, exactly. And you can see she's very much at the mercy of her father and what her
Hmm.
father wants. And I think there was a very good line actually, where she kind of says to him, my first marriage was of convenience to you.
Hmm.
She kind of explains, and that's how
Hmm.
she convinces him to let her marry Liu Chang. It's like,
Hmm.
I want to marry for love. Like I want to be happy. You owe this to me because I was sacrificed by
Hmm.
you for my first marriage. So I can understand her being a very mean, I don't know another
Yeah.
word, but
Well,
very
she's just
mean
so she
character.
doesn't see other people as people, I
No.
think is the thing. Like she just
Yeah.
she considers herself a person. I don't even know if she
Mhm.
considers Liu Chang a person. She considers him like a prop or like a thing
Yeah.
that she
A property.
wants.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I don't think she loves him. I think she's in love with the idea of what they had as kids.
Mm-hmm.
That romance that they had as kids. And that's what she wants. And because he doesn't want her, it makes her want to own him, I think. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's like where her character is coming from. So it's very, even the horrible characters, and this is what I love about this drama as well,
Mm-hmm.
even the very mean and horrible characters are very nuanced. They are, they're characters that are like, I don't, this is a horrible way to put it, but they're like very meaty characters, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, yeah, it totally well,
Um,
and it's because they can be. Well, so I think this is part of why to me, like the second male lead is more interesting than the first one because he's just messier. He's like he does bad things. He's like not a good person, but he thinks he's a good person, and that just makes him more interesting.
it's because he's sitting so high up on his like moral
Hmm.
high horse that it's very interesting when especially like He Wei Fang knocks him from that moral
Hmm.
high horse because he doesn't see that his parents messed her up. Like her mother could have survived if they had
Hmm.
given her the right pill. They chose not to.
Hmm.
He doesn't see that his family is like literally using Wei Fang as a cash cow. Like literally, that's what they want.
Yeah.
They want her money, and that's all they want out of her. Um, but just going back to like her Wei Feng, we got
Yeah,
sidetracked, but
we
that's
did.
fine. That's fine. That's fine. Um, I really liked her journey. I like in the beginning, this woman is put through everything and anything. Like everything is
Hmm.
thrown at her. So we start off the drama, and she is married to Liu Chang. And she's very content to just be left alone. Like she just
Hmm.
wants to be left in her courtyard and, just do her own thing, do her flowers. That's all she wants.
Hmm.
Um, she barely has any interaction with her husband,
And she
and I
prefers it that way.
prefers it that way, actually. And this is actually where you start to see very much the what she doesn't care for marriage. She married because she had
Hmm.
to. But even when it comes to her marrying Chang Yang, she doesn't care for that marriage either. But you
Hmm.
can see the difference because when it comes to her marrying Chang Yang, she cares for him more like
Hmm.
not. I don't think she loves him. I truly don't think she
Hmm.
loves him in this first part. I think she has a very deep friendship with him and
Hmm.
like a connection because he has helped her so many times. Um, and Liu Chung doesn't see that. Like he sees, oh, I want her now. Because
Hmm.
when you had her, it's very interesting. Both for Liu Chang and for Yu Zhen, so the county princess, they both want what they can't have. And that's
Yeah.
such a second, liege thing to happen. They both want what they can't have.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, Mudan's story. I liked her character. I liked that we got to see her going from someone who was so far down. I mean, this girl gets, I don't know, everything happens to her. Her in-law, she just wants a divorce. I mean, she gets to a point where she
Getting a
just
divorce is
wants to
so hard.
divorce.
And
And
she
the
doesn't
thing
even
is,
succeed at the end of it. Like they,
no,
oh man, like she's
she,
lucky to escape
she
with her life.
yeah. Yeah, because they send, so her in-laws send people to kill her because what the in-laws want is they want her to die so that Liu Chang is then free to marry the county princess. But
But Yeah,
they
but they want to
also
keep her dowry.
exactly they want to keep her dowry because she's not nobility, and this is actually a really really interesting topic that the drama touches on several
Hmm.
times. Wei Fang is so incredibly smart. She's a very savvy businesswoman, very savvy businesswoman. Her father is a fair, he came by his fortune because he's a savvy businessman. But I think her mother was the real,
Hmm.
let's say, head in terms of, making business with her father and whatnot. Her mother dies, you know, her mother dies. She marries somebody because she thinks they're going to give her this pill to help her mother. They gave her the wrong pill. So we're already starting that. And the only reason they very much look down on her because she's not nobility, because she's from the merchant class. And the thing is,
Hmm.
merchants carry wealth. That's the
Hmm.
problem. Is
Yeah.
that they're kind of like in this category that they carry wealth for the country, but they don't have the status
Hmm.
to, hang in the right circles. But I think this drama did that aspect of it really well. What did you think about that?
I really liked it. I thought it was really useful to have her from this social class where she wasn't nobility. So when she like married up into nobility and like officialdom, they treated her like garbage and assumed like,
Hmm.
oh, well, you just care about money. And everything they do, they just treat her like she must just want money. But then she is also above like people who are really dirt poor.
Hmm.
So she's in this sort of middle ground where she's not really she can't comfortably marry up, but she also can't like she's just in a weird spot. And I thought that was so interesting how they handled that.
Yeah, because a lot of the time we'll see characters like from a very, very like low class and they start marrying up or whatever, or we see these historical dramas being set with like people of some nobility class. So it's really interesting to see her from a merchant class because, it's like you said, it's almost like a murky class in the sense that
Mm-hmm.
you are rich enough to hang out with the
Mm-hmm.
nobility, but they still don't want you. Like they'll take your money, but they don't
Yeah.
want you to hang out with them.
Yes,
So
especially the
it's
like impoverished nobility. So like
hmm
they literally marry her for her money and she knows that. But
yeah.
then like they just and they also like buck a lot of social convention and like what are sort of like moral norms about like women being able supposed to be able to keep control of their dowries because that's like what they live on and then
hmm
them being like and then continually taking parts of her dowry, guilting her into giving it to them, and then like selling some of her properties without her permission. Okay, also we have to she was only in a couple of episodes, but the death of Yulu,
Oh
Mudan's
my God,
maid,
her
was also like
mate.
that was I cried at that. I was so
I s-
upset.
so sad. I didn't think it, like the thing is, I thought they might go there because she was gonna
Hmm.
need something to make her snap,
Yeah,
right?
she
Because I think
really needed to hit like rock bottom.
yeah, and that was her rock bottom because that was the only person left to her that was
Hmm.
truly, truly important to her. I mean, her father,
Hmm.
yes, but he's not gonna. We all saw,
Yeah.
what he did.
Ugh.
We all saw her. So her father, she manages to get away from the house, and her father kind of like turns his back on him because he now has a son, and the son takes priority. And we don't want the nobility, we don't want the Liu family to come and fall on
Hmm.
our son. So, I was so upset about Yulu, and I thought they might go there. I really did. I really,
Hmm.
really did. But I didn't I was hopeful they weren't. That was
Yeah.
my because I was like, can you just leave her one person? Just one,
Uh-huh.
just one, just one. So she gets away from her in-laws by faking her own death. Like,
Hmm.
because they, in-laws send people after her to kill her because again, they want her gone so that they can claim her dowry, but they also want Liu Chang to be able to marry the county princess.
Hmm.
Now, let's talk about before we even touch
Hmm.
on Chang Yang. I think it's important to touch on Liu Chang as a character first because that's the
Hmm.
first person we see in terms of the interactions, and I find that first stretch of drama, so to speak, very interesting for him as a character because he gets put in very awkward situations. Because at
Hmm.
that point, he's still, or he thinks he's in love with the county princess. Um, and that makes things very, very awkward for Wei Feng because he refuses to divorce this woman. And you kind of like
Hmm.
are stuck thinking, why? You don't love her. Why are you so much in love with the idea of being married to her, but you don't want to be married to her? Because that's like, it's a conundrum for him, isn't it? He doesn't want to give
Hmm.
up on the marriage, but he also doesn't want to be married to her. And there's one scene where I wrote where he almost rapes her. And I was like, because she's like
Hmm.
saying no. And that like
Hmm.
cements your dislike for this character. If
Hmm.
nothing else up to that point had. But like you were saying, I think he's a very morally grey character. He is a product of his environment, I think because
Hmm.
he's always been told he's the only son of the family. He's the only child of the Liu family. He's always been told he's destined for greatness and he's been treated in this manner and he has the very like nobility air about him. Even the way he walks and acts, it's very like,
Hmm.
you know, very noble. But he doesn't know that his nobility or whatever is earned on the back of He Wei Feng's
Hmm.
dowry in a sense. So touch on his character. Like, what did you think about him in the sort of the first half of the drama when he's still married to Wei Feng?
So I found him super interesting because he clearly sees himself as the hero of his own story and
Hmm.
is pretty oblivious to a lot of the corruption around him. So he very much believes the like, I will work hard and I will pass the exam and then I will get an official position and everyone will respect how smart I am.
Hmm.
And he doesn't understand all the corruption, all the bribes, all of the wheel greasing that has to go on behind the scenes to make that actually happen. So in that way he's a very idealistic character.
Hmm.
But he also is a snob, which is part of why he treats Mudan like trash for the beginning of their marriage. But I think, this shift that happens when he doesn't really like being treated like a thing by the county princess. Like he's
Hmm.
not super into that, and he starts to see because he's a dummy. He starts to see like that Mudan is like a person. Uh,
Yes.
as she's caring for her peonies, as she's like actually he maybe realizes that she's kind of smart that she's like so I love the shots and the sequences where she is like where like something has happened to like the flowers and she has to save them. And I love those at every part of the
Hmm.
drama. But there's like a scene
Yes,
where
I agree.
her like looking after her flowers and he's like, "Oh, wait a second. She's this is a person
Mm.
that I have been over she's a person with thoughts and feelings," which like such a dumb realization for him to have. That's like a bare minimum. But because of that, he like wants her as soon as he realizes that she has never had any interest in him.
Mm.
It's like that whole like, oh, like I didn't want her when I thought that she was just like a grubby merchant trying to marry up, but now that I
Now
know
she
that
looks more interesting. Yeah.
yeah, now that I know I don't have her, I have to prove that I do. And
Yeah.
he's so interesting to see like that. I'm looking ahead a little bit, but like that sort of fall from his own sort of moral purity and seeing
Hmm.
himself as the hero. Because
Yeah.
even when he wants He Fang or Mudan to stay, he doesn't recognize his own lack of power and that like and he also
Hmm.
like doesn't realize, especially at the beginning, that his parents are trash. Like
His
he does
parents are
not
horrible,
like they have
horrendous.
literally sent assassins after his wife and he totally doesn't get it and like wants her to
No,
stay and like so he can look after her. And it's like, no, you can't. Like he does not have the power to do that. And he totally does not get it. So
no, no,
he's
no.
fascinating to watch.
I agree. I agree. Like, I don't like his character, but I think he's very cleverly written. Like, he's
Yes.
very nuanced, very layered. And like
Hmm.
you said, I love seeing his fall from his high moral high horse. It's like fascinating to watch because I think when he gets so this is much later on in the drama, but when the princess is like, because I think so basically it's the scene after she forces Mudan to go and show her a flower, and she, like, idiotically, it's her own fault, stabs her a horse, falls off the horse, and then gets like kicked, and she's not going to be able to have any kids. From what I gather, I don't think she's going to be able to have children.
Hmm.
And like Liu Chong gets thrown in prison and beaten within an inch of his life, like gets a broken leg, is now looked at as like disabled, which in
Yeah.
that era was like, they were treated horrendously bad. And he's now thinking the only thing that can save me is like marrying this princess so
Hmm.
I can raise myself. And it's very interesting because that was the exact thing in the beginning that he
Hmm.
hated about Mudon. He hated that he thought she married for title to raise herself. But it comes full circle because that's exactly what he
Hmm.
does. He marries up and he marries the princess because he wants more power and he wants to prove, well, his obsession is that he's gonna somehow get Wei Feng back. And I'm gonna be very, very interesting because I think he's gonna become. He's just been. I feel like in the first part, not the first couple of episodes where she's still married. He was a true, character there, but later on, I feel like he becomes like a side character, much more on the
Hmm.
sidelines. You see his story happening, but it's not that big of a deal to like,
Hmm.
the plot as a whole. But I reckon in the second half, his downward spiral is going to be even bigger. And I think he's going to
Hmm.
become a bigger player in the story as a whole. Um, because I think the King of Ning, they call him king, but he's not a king. Like he's not. I don't feel like MDL says
Hmm.
he's like King of Ning, but I think they call him Prince. That's what the subtitles are saying.
Yeah, and Vicky, I think they called him like the prince. But it also
Prince,
it
yeah.
also seems like he that the emperor doesn't have like a strong hold on his power, so like the Prince of
Mm,
Ning through like various mechanisms
yeah,
actually is
yeah.
pulling a lot of the strings, but yes, but going back to Lu Chong really quickly, it does feel like at the end of the drama that he as he sort of lets go of his moral compunctions is entering his villain era.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like he's been a villain, but he didn't think he was the villain. But now
Yeah.
that he like has let go of like his moral hangups, I think he is going to be like the villain.
Yeah, and the thing is, now he's more dangerous because
Oh
he has
yeah.
no moral compass. Like now he's just like nothing is not, nothing is out of bounds for me to get what
Hmm.
I want. And what he wants is Wei Feng for some,
Hmm.
he wants power. He wants to sit in a place of power. And ultimately, you truly see, and I think it happens when it's a beautiful. I really liked the scene. It's the scene where so Liu Chong is inside the carriage going to his wedding, right?
Oh,
And
that his wedding was
Mudan,
fascinating to watch because he was very
fascinating,
much
yes.
like in because he did. I'll let you make your point, but he like very much is fulfilling the role of the bride, and where he
Yes.
has no power and like is marrying into her
Into.
house,
Yep.
and then he's the one who has to walk in, even though they have just broken his leg, so he can't really
Mm-hmm.
walk, and like he's very much like at rock bottom in a
Mm.
way, and in a way that like in a drama that is very concerned about gender-based oppression
Mm-hmm.
is also thinking about class here, in which like when those things intersect in different ways, like your maleness won't save you if your class isn't high enough.
Yeah, yeah. I think
But sorry,
this
make your
drama,
point.
um, yeah, so that scene specifically, I was going to
Hmm.
say also, I loved that whole wedding because we don't see that in historical dramas where the male is
Hmm.
marrying into the bride's, family because she is of a higher standing. There's no way they're going to marry a princess off into his household.
Mm-mm.
That's a much lower nobility. Like, Prince of Ning would never allow that to happen. So he would have Liu Chang has to truly lower himself to marry into his own bride's family, right?
Hmm.
So that's very interesting. But that scene specifically where he's in the carriage going in one direction and the whole like Mudon and Changyang pass on a horse
Hmm.
next to his carriage. And you can see, and Wade Zining did such a good job with this scene
Oh
because you can
yeah.
see like the expression on his face just like change to one of like pure rage. He is just
Hmm.
so angry because Chang Yang has taken, Mudon away from him. And the thing is, Mudon is not even marrying Chang Yang as his first wife. She's marrying him as a
Yeah.
concubine. And she
Yeah.
seems happier marrying him as a concubine than,
Hmm.
than she was married to Liu Chong as an official first wife. So,
Hmm.
that whole what's the word I'm looking for? That whole relationship is very, very interesting. And I
Hmm.
think we're going to really see Liu Chong and Chong Yang go head to head in the second half.
Hmm.
Because
So
I
some of
think
the okay, sorry,
no,
go
no, go
ahead.
for it, go for it, go for it.
One of the things that drove me nuts about Lu Chong, in like a good way, and like this was a good writing thing,
Hmm.
is that he kept, because he saw himself as the hero, kept trying to like quote unquote rescue Mudan in ways that put her in more danger.
Yes.
Like trying to like save her from like the slave camps, trying like him continuing to visit her and like stalk her at her shop is what like brings her to the attention of the county princess, which is why she has to marry Changyang in the first
Yeah.
place. Like his extremely misguided actions to save her because he sees himself as the hero always make things worse for her.
Mhm. It also, I think it shows so beautifully the difference between Liu Chang and Chang Young as characters, right? Because
Hmm.
Chang Young is like, she's got this. If she needs
Hmm.
help, I'll step in, but she's got this. Like I am not. And you see that throughout the
Uh-huh.
drama. He truly only steps in when he knows his influence and his, because he's very high up. He has a lot of
Hmm.
power. He holds a lot of power, a lot of influence. And he only steps in when he truly sees that Mudon needs that power and that backup because she has
Hmm.
no one else to get it from, right? So that
Yeah.
is in the slavery camp where
Hmm.
he's one of the few people who could get her out of it. That is in situations like, when he needs, and this is even like proved when he's trying to help her to get a divorce. He only steps in because she asks him to step in,
Hmm.
you know. But that's at the very early steps of like their
Hmm.
friendship. Now, what I do appreciate moving on to like Changyang and Mudon, as I do appreciate that they are building such a good foundation for their
Hmm.
relationship, because they're truly friends. And yes, they start off as like business partners, and
Hmm.
both of these characters are very money orientated, and that's fine. That's not a bad thing. Like,
Hmm.
I don't think that's because like some people will say that and they'll mean that in like a horrible way. But honestly, it's really not a bad thing in that day and age to be money orientated and to want to make money and make business. And Chang Yang is the epitome of being a nobility class that does not look down on like
Hmm.
other classes. And I think
Hmm.
that becomes even more obvious when we meet his aunt, right? Much later on in the drama. First of
Hmm.
all, I adore her character.
Oh
I
yeah.
felt like she's such a fun character. And she's just like, she's also a businesswoman. And you kind of
Hmm.
understand why Chang Yang kind of is the way he is because he has like other women influences in his life that are kind of like that. So let's touch on him as a character because yes, he is the nice one, but I reckon he's gonna pull some strings in the second half. I think what I mean by the second arc, I think it's going to be his arc now
Hmm.
because his whole thing is that on the surface, people see a playboy, they see a character that is going around the gallivanting around the
Yeah.
country in the look, looking for the finer things of life in brothels and whatnot. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like what his character is known for. They have to entertain him and they have to respect him because he has, I mean, who the heck? What in the heck is even a flower envoy? I mean,
Okay, so I was looking at some recaps from like a recap site, and they
yeah.
they translated his position. I think flower envoy is actually better because they translated his position as the director of flowers and birds.
Like, what is this even? I mean, it's perfect pairing for Mudon. It truly is a perfect pairing for Mudon, but still, yeah, that's what his character is on the surface, but underneath, he's very smart character, and he
Hmm.
sees things he puts on that act for others. Like that's not him at all, I don't think. And Mudan says something, and it's very much towards the end. I think it's like episode 29 or 30. It's like one of the last episodes. And she got drunk because she visited her mum's like tomb grave. She got drunk. She went and lit a candle for her mum. And
Hmm.
you know, he kind of brings her back and he's like walking he's got, the classic piggyback,
Yes.
thinks she's drunk and she's like talking to him and kind of like saying, oh, yeah, he's my husband. But it's, and he gets like this heart fluttering. But right before that, she says something along the lines of, I know that deep down he has something that really hurts him still. And that's like his whole family dynamic. So I
Hmm.
think that's what they're going to move into. I think we're going to move into like court politics in the second part. Um, at least that's what I think with his character and whatnot. What
Hmm.
did you think about his character? Because yes, he can come across as the slightly less compelling character because he's nice and he's
Hmm.
not as layered as Liu Chong, for example, but I think he's still like a good solid character. So what did you think about him?
So I'm kind of two minds about him a little bit because I
Mhm.
really enjoyed watching him. I really love this actor. Like I went in with a lot of fondness for him already
Mhm,
from Meet
mhm,
Yourself and Will Love in Spring. And like I enjoy his dynamic with Mudon and that like I
mhm.
really like that they are both as smart as the other one. So I
Yes.
like that that works. But there are also, I think, some ways in which he doesn't feel, I don't know, as historically accurate. I'm gonna put that in air
Mm,
quotes a little bit because there's a sense I think in the drama that like he feels like a modern man with like more modern sensibilities sort of plopped into this drama. And I
mhm,
understand why they're doing that because Mudan is so like traumatized and has had such a terrible experience with her first marriage that there is no way that she would ever fall in love again with like a like traditional period man. Like she would not
mhm,
do
mhm,
it. Would not help her. She would not be into it. So they kind of have to set him up as this exception in order to like make that romance even have a possibility of being persuasive.
mhm,
But like I think because of that, So I'm going to go back a little bit. I can keep talking about systemic gender-based oppression,
No, no,
but
go for it.
like part of the reason I think this drama didn't fully drive for me is that in order to make a convincing argument that gender-based oppression is systemic and is not the fault of like a few bad actors, there can't be an exception to the rule.
Mm.
And they are setting him up as an exception to the rule
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
he can nice guy his way out of like I don't know, like just the various systemic things. Like there's also I think this actually kind of bothered me a little bit because it was played for comedy, but also was like honestly kind of like fucked up.
Yeah.
After he buys her and owns her after she
Yep.
has been a slave and is
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, it's fine. Like you can keep doing like what you're doing, like whatever." And then the drama's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Well, just like don't look at that too hard." But like in the
Yeah.
scene when Lu Chang shows up at like Mudon's door and is like, "I'm here to take you away, whatever, whatever." And then it turns into a conversation between Changyang and Lu Chang about like, "Oh, well, I own her. You can't buy her." And it's
Yeah.
played for comedy, but
Mm.
also like under the surface, that is horrible.
That
Like
is. That is.
and it
Like,
depends on him being a nice guy to not
mm,
sell her. And he is a
exactly.
nice guy, so he won't do it, but like
Yeah,
he could.
he could. And the thing is, I understand why it's done because it's the only way
Yeah.
he's going to get her out of that camp, right? It's the
Yeah.
only way that he can do that because she was de facto stripped of everything that she
Hmm.
onions.
And
Again,
of
by the Liu
personhood even.
family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of her personhood, she becomes nothing more than cattle, basically,
Hmm.
that works for the crown and not even works like it's not sugar, let's not sugarcoat, she is a slave. That's what
Yep.
they become.
Well,
That's
they
what
literally are
they
used for
become.
target practice.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like that's I think that's part of what I meant at the beginning where like the arc in Mudon's early marriage and then the arc in like the with the slavery and then honestly like the arc with her bestie who ends up dying
Chanky,
by
yeah,
suicide.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're
Like
definitely gonna have to talk about
yeah.
that one because that's a whole thing.
Yeah, but those all feel very like life and death stakes. But then when Mudon is like chilling out with her cute little house that's attached to Chongyang's house, it feels like a different drama in some ways.
Mm. I feel like they want that balance needs to be struck a little bit better because I feel like
Hmm.
if we constantly have those life and death situations, you would start to think, oh my God, like no, like nobody's life is this
Yeah.
bad. Like, come on now. You can't be
Yeah.
throwing another thing. So I feel like what they've done is throw those lesser moments to kind of break up
Okay,
the
yeah, I think
tension a
that's
little
fair.
bit. I feel like to me, that's what it felt like. It felt like they give you really high stakes and then they
Hmm.
give you like, let's hit pause for a little bit, take a
Hmm.
breather, and then another high stakes. I feel like that's, where it comes from. Now, does it mean that sometimes the pacing feels a little bit off? Yes, I would agree that's the case. But I think with everything that happens with like every life, I don't know, and death situation, Mudon learns something new and she,
Hmm.
takes those experiences on, into later life. So I feel like
Hmm.
both of those are necessary for the drama. Do they need to be in a little bit of a more better balance? Perhaps, but I do feel like they are both necessary. Now, you've already touched on it, but we absolutely need to talk about Shang Yi as a character
Oh,
because
yeah.
she's a very, very interesting juxtaposition to like Yang Zi as a character,
Hmm.
to Mudon because it's the way they were brought up, right? It's kind
Yeah.
of like that nature versus nurture situation where
Hmm.
is it the environment that you were brought up in that makes you be a certain way, or is it inherently you, or is it a combination of
Mm-hmm.
both? Now, Mudon was brought up by a mother that is very forward thinking. Her whole family
Mm-hmm.
seems very forward thinking, but her mother specifically, from the very little that we see of her mother in the drama, because obviously she's dead by the time we start the
Yeah.
drama, but from the very little we see, she seems to be a very forward thinking. Mudon was loved by her parents. She was
Yeah.
doted on as a daughter. She grew up asking and wanting for nothing among these beautiful flowers. She had a beautiful childhood, from what we
Mm-hmm.
see until her mother dies, and up up to her mother dying. Before then, she has had a beautiful childhood and into like adolescence, because I'm guessing that's when they start. I don't know how old she was when she married Liu
Mm-hmm.
Chang, but up until that point, she's had a very nice, loving family. Now, Shang Yi it's not that at all. And it's very
No.
easy. It's very easy for people to be like, oh, how could she? How dare she betray Mudan after everything? How dare she go back? And it's just like she's a victim, and victims
Uh-huh.
tend to go back. Sometimes
I,
it
I thought it,
happens.
yeah, I found it a very realistic and very sort of like pointedly realistic depiction of like domestic violence and domestic abuse and also the cycle of abuse and why
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
go back. Well, and also that like, oh, it was so sad because she really truly felt like if she wanted to get married again and have children, maybe she had no choice. That like that this man, this horrible man was her only choice because he very much did the like the love bombing thing where he
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
showered her with affection and told her he was the only one who understood her and like all of these various things. And because she like had a sort of fundamental lack of belief in her own self-worth,
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
made which was not I don't even know if that was her fault, but like it was so like banged into her from like her family, from her husband, then ex-husband, like oh it was her arc was really really tragic, but I think very very well done.
Yes, I agree. Her arc was incredibly well done. I really, really liked watching it. And yes, you might just, on the surface, if you look at it, you'd just be mad at her for, you know, betraying Mudon in the way that she did. But I don't see it that way. I truly
Mm-hmm.
don't. I see it as someone who unfortunately. And I think that happened in the beginning when it first happens. I'm like, oh my God, like, how dare she? How could she? But then we have that scene and that episode where she goes back to her family, right? And she goes to see her family.
Oh
And
yeah.
then you truly understand her character. Like, this child was not loved. She is treated as a second class citizen within her own family.
Mm-hmm.
Her mother is treated so horribly by all
Mm-hmm.
of the men in the family. And it's very, very interesting because they are a lowly status family, yet
Mm-hmm.
it's so integrated in society at that time that men are the worthy ones and women are not. That,
Mm-hmm.
that's what happens in that family dynamic. And it's just fascinating to watch because you think, Shangi has truly developed as a character from that meek character that you
Mm-hmm.
first meet until like Mudon renames her and takes her with her and whatnot. That was her journey was really, really interesting. But then you have this huge setback, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
believe, I'm not sure, but like nowadays it's believed, or I think the statistic is that it takes a victim of domestic violence up to 7 times to truly get out of that,
Mm-hmm.
a domestic violence situation. And yes, this is a historical, but I feel like it's almost like a commentary that could still be applied to
Oh, absolutely.
today. So I didn't like her actions. It's the kind of like thing that I don't like her actions, but I understand them. I understand
Yeah.
where those actions are coming from. And I felt so incredibly sorry for her because she ultimately just wanted to be loved, but she herself had so little self love. Like, I say so little, she
Mm-hmm.
had no self love that she thought the only person she would be able to build a family with is this horrible, horrible man, horrible man.
Hmm.
That would be all that was for her. And, that would be
Hmm.
all her life. So her arc was very, very interesting. She was a very, very interesting character. And I will say what shines in this drama is very much the fact that every character in one way or another is very well written. They are
Hmm.
developed characters. You have pretty much, even the side characters have layers and are characters that you can understand in a way.
Yeah.
And Shang-Yi is kind of like the perfect depiction of that, I think.
Yeah, I think she was also a really good addition to like the thematic aspects of the
Mhm.
drama, and that like we have the county princess as like the upper class version of gender-based oppression, and then Mudon
Yeah.
kind of in the middle, and then Shang-Yi at the very bottom. So we get that
Hmm.
sort of layered depiction of like the intersectionality of gender and class there, and how those things are similar and different for women at different levels.
Mm. Yeah. I thought she was, you know, a very well thought out character. And I thought the art, although it was hard to watch at times, it was handled very well. Now, would have I preferred for her to not go down the route of hanging herself? Yes, but I also understand why she did it because to her, she had no other options. The
Well, and
justice
it felt
system
like,
was against
oh
her.
yeah. So that I think was a really interesting sort of like her death in the court. I think was a really interesting parallel to Mudan trying to get to get a divorce early in the drama,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in the sense that like Mudan was trying to prove like had just been like her husband had just attempted to sexually assault her. She had just been beaten, but she had to have like an audience to pressure the judge into like
Mm-hmm.
doing into taking her case. She had to have someone from like a higher official there to intervene to like get the divorce granted, and it didn't even end up working out. But for like Shang-Yi, it was like this is what happens when you don't have an ally.
Mm-hmm.
Like that she,
Mm-hmm.
even though her husband like beat her and betrayed her and all of this, like it was unforgivable for her to have killed him. And she was going to like there was just no recourse for her. And I think she also never forgave herself for inadvertently betraying Mudan. Like I don't think she
Mm-hmm.
could ever come back. I don't think as written she could come back from that. I wish she could have. Mudan like
Yes.
did her darndest to like extend her hand and like offer her a way back, but she just couldn't manage to take it.
No. And interestingly enough, now we have very, very like the very last few episodes, we have the addition of her sixth brother now being added into the storyline, which
He
is going to
is going
be
to be an
very, very
interesting,
interesting. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. He's already playing with fire, let's put it that way.
Oh
I
yeah.
think, I think he's because realistically speaking, right? Chang Yang doesn't really have anybody vying for Mudan's affection, right? Liu Chang
Mhm.
is not a threat in that
No,
essence because
not at all.
not at all. Like he knows, Chang Yang knows Mudan would never in her wildest dreams go back there, right? So
Hmm.
he's not competition. He never was, all right? But the sixth brother, however, is I think he's going to be the
Hmm.
character used to stoke Chong
Hmm.
Yang into being like, oh, maybe I do need to, do
Yeah.
something
Can't just like let the
about
status quo
this.
stand, like
Yes.
actually need to like
Yeah.
make a move.
And I'm very, very, very intrigued because I have just seen this actor in The White Olive Tree, and he
Oh,
played a
okay.
character. He played a character that I really, really liked, actually. So I'm very, very intrigued to see what he did. His role is going to be like in the second half. But I think he's going to become an interesting player, and I reckon he's literally going to be used as fodder for
Yeah.
Chang Young to get a move on the romance. I have no qualms that that's
Hmm.
what he's there for. And I think if done well, that could be very very entertaining to watch. In essence, so yeah, I think that's where his character is heading. I think Mudon has now completed her business side of it.
Hmm.
Uh, there's not a lot more they can pick at. I mean, she's grown her business. There's only
Hmm.
so much they can keep going back to that storyline. So I think that's sort of shelved in essence. We
Hmm.
have Liu Chang, who's going to become a much bigger villain. Like he's
Hmm.
truly going to become a villain now. He was bad before, but now I reckon he's going to become very, very much more the villain. We obviously still have Prince Ning in the background, and I reckon that's going to be interesting because those two are going to go against, I think, Chang Yang and the Emperor. And I feel like that's where the story is heading. We also have the addition of a concubine that Prince Ning is just like,
Man, I am
here.
so annoyed, but like I
It's
am
so
always
annoying.
so mad when people are just like sticking concubines into people's houses. Like it made me so mad in the story of Minglan. It's making me mad here. Like it, even in like my rewatch of Love Like the Galaxy, like they don't succeed, but like they also try and like just like slide a concubine in
Find a
there. Like
concubine in.
my God, like he literally
Just stop
delivers her
it.
in a box. Like
Yeah,
and it's like,
yeah. And he's like
here's my
opening it, and
present.
he's like, my God. That scene kills me. Because, like, and the thing is, you see Chong Yang trying to manipulate that situation. But unfortunately, he
Hmm.
does not have the power to do so. Like, there's only so much he can do without opening up his whole game, right? So he's like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna freaking have to take this concubine, aren't
Yeah.
and I reckon again the concubine is gonna be used for fodder again to get
Hmm.
Mudon and Chang Yang together. Yes, she's probably also going to be used to, Prince Ning, because that's what he wants. He wants the concubine to get pregnant. I don't think Chang Yang's even going to,
No,
which is
I
hilarious
don't
to
think
me.
that's gonna happen.
No, no, no. I mean, he went and spent his first wedding night with Mudon instead of the concubine. That whole scene was very, very interesting. But also, I think there's a possibility there for the story to pick up and like Mudon and that concubine becoming friends in an essence. You
Well,
see like the
yeah, so
tiniest bit
something
of it.
something that I think is happening and I hope the drama does this is like the woman who is forced to become this concubine, I think also
Mhm.
has no essentially no other choices except to do what the Prince
Yes.
of Ning has her do. And
Hmm.
because the drama is so aware of women in situations where they have no other choice, I think that I think something is gonna happen there. Like I don't know. I'm really hopeful that like Mudan and Changyang will like turn her basically against the Prince of
Hmm.
Ming. I hope that is what happens. But
Yeah,
I also
that's
say a trope that I love, and this was also something that happened in the story of Minglan, is when like a man will get a concubine and then his wife, either his legitimate wife or in this case Mudan, who is also a concubine, is absolutely not jealous at all. And
no.
he like really
Okay.
wants her to be jealous, but she's like, no, like it's fine. Like
It's
I'm
fine.
sorry this happened. She's
Yeah.
a spy, but like do what you gotta do,
It's
buddy.
fine.
I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah, yeah. But the thing is, Mudon is definitely not in love. I don't think nobody could convince me that Mudon is in love with Chang Yang in this first,
Hmm.
in this first thing. Now, Chang Yang, on the other hand, he's not in love with her, but he likes her. Like he's heading
Hmm.
towards that. And it's like in the little looks, it's in
Hmm.
the and there's a scene, and I think it's episode 32, I believe. It's either 31 or 32, where he's sitting on a swing and she gets very close to him, and it's
Hmm.
I think that they're talking about flowers, right? And she's like, just tell me what flowers you want for next year. And I have a note of this because I'm sure I took down the note. They talk about a specific flower. um oh, there we go. He says to her that he wants begonias, and she says to him, begonias means I have a secret crush. It doesn't suit you. Have you ever had a crush on anybody? And he's like looking at her with like eyes of somebody who absolutely has a
Oh
crush on
yeah.
her, as the voiceover is playing his attendant saying, you're different when she's around. So,
Hmm.
he's obviously there. Like he's he's kidding himself and everybody
Hmm.
else. Her, however, not there. She's not
Yeah.
there in the slightest. Now, why? I think it's because she's been so heavily focused on like what she
Hmm.
wants to do, her life plan, and she's just like, I don't really need to marry. Like, I'm
Hmm.
good. I'm good. Um, and she said, like, they have this conversation over and over again between the women about what women want, and I feel like it's a very applicable conversation that women are having still in 2025, whereas
Yep.
where Mudan is saying, yeah, but some women don't want families, some women don't want
Hmm.
children, and it's like, how is it that in 2025 we are still having this conversation, and it's still like, for some people, not acceptable that women
Hmm.
don't want to have children? Like, it's very, very interesting that they picked up on that, and Mudan is really not that bothered about
Oh
having a
yeah,
family and
she's
having
she's
children. She's like, she's
she's
good,
over
she's
it.
good. Yeah, she's good, she's like, been there, tried that, don't want to do it again.
Hmm.
So I feel like one of my biggest concerns, and I think this is actually, we're heading in the part where we're probably going to end up wrapping up the episode where we're just, talking about what we think season two is going to look like. But one of my biggest concerns is that they haven't left themselves enough time to build the romance on her side. Um,
Hmm.
for it to be impactful and for it to be believable. Because if there's just 24 episodes, if we're going to get any sort of quality time of them together as a couple in love, it's going to have to happen fairly like soonish into those 24
Yeah.
episodes, right?
I think they're gonna have to like oh, so like where we leave it, I fully believe that Changyang is in love with her, but is not
Mhm.
aware of it or doesn't want to be aware of it.
Yes.
Because like the way he like drops it like there's a way in which like I kind of love it when like a male lead has to like drop everything and is in like a panic when like his lady is in danger. And that is kind
Hmm.
of what happens when he saves her from the slave
Hmm.
situation. But for her, I wonder, like, because how he's acting it, I believe he's in love with her, even if he won't admit it. But like, I think she is being directed and written to not be in love with him yet.
Hmm.
But like, I feel like in order to give, I really like it when we have time for like a couple to be like a dream team, which like they could be, they like could do that. But like, I don't know what story-wise they could do to get like that switch to flip for her because like
Hmm.
there's not time for a slow build if we're
No.
gonna get that. But I
We're
also don't
past
know
that.
what kind of yeah, I also don't know what plot event I would find believable to flip that switch.
Mm. Yeah, so I think that's one of my biggest concerns um for the second part is
Hmm.
how are they going to make it? Because for him, I believe it. He's there. Like I believe that. But for
Hmm.
her, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know. And interestingly enough, actually, you were talking about Minglan, and this is very similar to them as well, because I don't think
Hmm.
Minglan was really in love with him when they first married, when
Oh
she
no,
does.
I
I'm not going to say
not at all.
I'm not going to say who she marries, but when she marries, because I finished up the story of Minglan a couple of weeks ago, and I've
Hmm.
got an episode recorded for it, so I am going to
Oh,
release that.
excellent.
I'm
I
very
will be
excited.
listening.
Um, but we do talk about that. It's the fact that she's not really in love with him. Hence why she's like, "Oh, you want a concubine? Fine." And like Mudan
Hmm.
is exactly the same, because Mudan, she even says it when they're having like that piggyback situation. She says, "Oh yeah, I know Chong Yang. He's my husband. But let me tell you a secret. It's all fake." And like you could
Hmm.
see his face fall. And it's like, if she's
Yeah,
drunk and she's saying it's all fake, like nothing's
yep.
happening there. I mean, where are you going to go with that? So, when that happened in Minglan, they had a fair amount of time
Yeah,
to
they had
kind
almost
of,
like another 35 more episodes to figure it
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That is, Minglan is slow on the rope. Jesus. But this one, I feel like this one's even slower than
Hmm.
Minglan. Um, but but yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. I'm hoping they can handle it well. And I'm hoping like the cutting of the episodes haven't damaged it so badly that,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna feel rushed, which is my
Mm-hmm.
like biggest concern. Um I'm very intrigued to see where Liu Chang as a character goes because I feel like he's gonna
Mm-hmm.
be in his evil era. I feel like Jiang Chong Yang, so the male lead Li Xian's character, I feel like we're going to see a couple of switches for him in the second half of the drama.
Mm-hmm.
I hope, anyways. I hope like I feel like his character, because like the first half is like Mudan's story, right? I feel
Yeah.
like they're going to switch into his storyline a little bit in the
Mm-hmm.
second half. We also have the princess to deal with because she obviously knows. Like in when they get married, she doesn't, but then he's like cradling this flower, and
Yeah.
I'm like, this man is crazy. He's lost it.
I am so
Absolutely
excited to
lost.
see the County Princess and Liu Chong destroy each other. Like they're
Mhm,
both
mhm,
insane and they're
mhm.
absolutely gonna like it's gonna be beautiful.
Do you know what it reminds me of? Have you watched The Double?
I haven't, but I know enough about it to like
Right.
I see the comparison you're making.
Yeah, there's a couple in there. She's also a princess. And well, it's not a big spoiler because it's
Hmm.
the premise of the story, but he cheats on his wife and, kills his wife to marry this princess, right?
Uh-huh.
And those two remind me very much of Liu Chang and the princess in this
Yeah.
story.
It's kind of a
Very
similar
toxic.
setup, actually. Yeah.
Yes, yes, very similar setup. Actually, very, very similar setup. Very
Yeah,
toxic, very toxic. But I do say, I've always said, toxic relationships make for really good entertainment
they
because
do.
like, would I want that in my life?
No,
Absolutely the
thank
heck
you.
not. Like, I'm running for the hills, but on my screen, give it to me because this is why, like, people are like, oh my God, he's such a red flag but I'm like, but red flags are so interesting to watch.
Hmm.
They make for very compelling characters. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna be very interested to see what they do in general. Prince of Ning. I don't know where I feel like he's
I'm sure he'll
just
get deposed or killed, so it'll be
yeah.
fine.
He's
That
not
part, eh,
we're not that bothered. We're not that bothered about
no.
what happens to him because he's just there as the antagonist. He's, I will
Yep.
say, one of the more underdeveloped characters in my opinion.
Hmm.
I feel like his reasoning is just he wants power and that always feels like a
He's kind of
lame
like
excuse.
he's like the shorthand for a corrupt official. Like
Yeah, exactly.
that's
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
the same as many other corrupt officials and it's
Mhm.
fine, but yeah, whatever. They need to overthrow him. It'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah. But that's exactly what I mean about this. And for example, we keep going back to him, but he is a very interesting character. Liu Chang is one of the more meaty characters in the show. Even
Hmm.
though I don't like the dude, he's a horrible character. But he's very well written. And it's exactly the same thing, actually, that I said about the princess in The Double, is that
Hmm.
hated her actions, but she was such an interesting character to
Yeah.
watch. Um, so yeah, I think that's where we're heading in terms of I don't know. I wish because if they're going to do two parts anyway, why not have the second part be another 30 episodes? I don't know.
Hmm.
Because, like, you have the ability to do so. I feel like if you're going to split it anyways, make use of it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. What have you got any more thoughts about this in general that you really want to get there? Any characters you really want to talk about before?
Uh, I maybe will say that I really loved the soundtrack. Actually, I really
Mm,
loved the OST. I've like
yes.
that's one of the ones that I like had a couple of the songs like on repeat, like when I was getting ready in the morning, as I was
Yes.
watching the drama. I don't know what any of the songs are called, but like
I
particularly
never
the one they
know.
would play when Mudan was like doing her flower cultivating or when like
Yeah.
something has happened and she needs to get to work. Like, loved
Mm-hmm.
it. Total
Mm-hmm.
perfect vibe. Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I really liked that. I will say we kind of mentioned it a little bit in the non-spoilers, but this drama truly is beautiful. The way they handle flowers, the respect they have for
Hmm.
flowers, it's truly done so incredibly well. And I love the fact that these flowers are a symbol of nobility and they're a
Hmm.
symbol of money. And
Hmm.
Mudan is just out there bringing these to the common people, and I'm here for it.
Hmm.
I like that she makes it accessible to a lot of people. I like this is something that we didn't touch on, but I like the found family
Yes.
aspect of it. Even just between, the fact that he like Changyang's attendant becomes very close friends to like Mudan's attendants and whatnot, and their
Hmm.
shenanigans together. And in general, the found family that Mudan brings around her to her
Hmm.
shop. And the way she convinces people to work for her honestly.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's a scene that's very obvious, very much later on in the drama, where Mudan it becomes ill because she's just taking on too much. She's like
Hmm.
stretching herself too thin and wearing herself down, and she collapses, right? And she this is before she opens up the garden, and they're working on the garden, and there's a big disruption between like two of the cultivate. I don't know one of the gardener and one's a gardener and one's the construction team, let's put it that way.
Hmm.
And Mudan is like barely out of her sick bed, and she's like, no, I have to take care of this, I have to take care of this. And Changyang is there, and he's like, it's fine, I'll dig it up, I'll do it. And then like the teams come and they hide, and the team's kind of like, look, she's fallen ill, we just need to get this done, we need to work together. And
Hmm.
like that shows to how good of a boss she is and how good she leads her people, and like the way
Hmm.
they feel welcomed into her workforce. So I love her character. She's incredibly smart, and I can't wait to see more of her. I feel
Hmm.
like this is a really good character for Yangtze. I feel like Yangtze has been
Yes.
trying to break out of these like more idol roles for a really long time. But it's really difficult for
Hmm.
her because she is a child actress and, she's grown in front of the cameras. So it's a little bit more
Hmm.
difficult for her to stoke away. But I feel like her character in Lost You Forever, for example, and now her character in
Hmm.
this are definitely steps in the right direction. These are not idol roles. I don't think these are
Hmm.
heavier, meatier roles. So yeah, I feel like she's the unexpectedly the brightest star in the show.
Hmm.
Rightfully so, because it is her story. And the last thing I'll touch on is although the lacks romance, there's barely any of it. The chemistry between these two are ridiculously good. It's so incredibly
Hmm.
good. You can feel the tension in certain scenes.
Hmm.
You can feel, their back and forth. I love their banter. Like their back and forth
Hmm.
is some of like my favorite scenes because, like you said, they're intellectually on the same level. And the way she tries to appease him and offend him at the same time is chef's kiss for me. And he's just like,
Hmm.
he kind of like takes it. So I really, 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 really like that. So overall, I liked this drama. I'm just hoping they can land the second part. That would
Yes.
be like my final thoughts about it, I think. Have you got anything else you'd like to add on?
Um, I did also like building on like Mudan's character and how she's good at like getting people's loyalty. I think she's also very good at seeing the value in people who have been discarded by
Mm.
the system. Like from the very beginning with like the other merchant woman whose business is about to fail and she finds a way to like give her and her daughter like work and incorporate them into her business. And then like earning the loyalty of the other servants in like her garden when she's able to get it back. And seeing like when the head servant woman finds like the three women who like have I don't remember exactly what their skills are, but like
Yeah, yeah.
basically these three women who had been like discarded by the system. Like one was like former nobility that had fallen, like, and all of these things. And Mudan is like, I don't care about that. You're good at this, and I value that. and I value
Hmm.
you.
Hmm.
And I just really like that about her as a character. And it's very much, I think, informed by a lot of her hardship and suffering in the beginning.
Hmm. I'm hoping they keep like that found family aspect going into the second part as well.
Hmm.
Because like you said, I like the found family that they have both in their first shop and then like in the garden by the end. So I'm hopeful that that's something they also continue in season two. I think that's it. That is,
Yeah.
our review. And like I said, it is incomplete because we don't know what the drama's going to hold.
Hmm.
We've already said we're going to be back. We're going to review the second
Hmm.
part. Hopefully, we're going to be squealing about it in a good way and not, you know,
Not in a lost you forever way.
no, no, please let this not be a lost you forever scenario again because I don't think I can handle that.
No.
But we shall see. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on the podcast Sex Love Literature, which you can find wherever you get your podcast. And you can also find us on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Tumblr at Sex.Love.Lit Podcast.
And I will make sure to link those in the episode notes for you guys. Thank you so much for coming on, Corinne. It's always a
Yeah.
pleasure chatting to
Thanks for
you.
having me. This was a great time, and this is such a meaty drama. There was so much to
So
like
much.
unpack.
It's so much. There's so much. Very complex storylines, very complex characters. And like we were saying, sometimes you get the main couple has a really like complex and layered situation, but the characters behind them lack. This is not that.
Yeah, this is
So,
much more about everything else.
yes, yes. So, thank you so much. We will definitely be back to review part two whenever that decides to show up on our screens. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode and we shall catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.